All right, let's get this thing started.
All right.
Okay. All right. So I'm supposed to leave, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So basically, the case study was about Sandusky and Joe Paterno and the whole Penn State football team and all the like sexual abuse and stuff that was going on. So the first question is, what action should the university have taken in 1988 in light of the fact that Sandusky was not prosecuted?
So, where I have to pull that up.
What do you want to start on?
What action should the university have taken? I think that the university should have, they should have done something and noted that Sandusky had this, this thing against him. What's the word for it? They had a case on him, even though they couldn't find enough information. They definitely should have put that file away and been like, okay, we better keep a better eye on him. And the university should have not let him back into locker rooms or anywhere that he could do another act, even if it was just not enough information and the case was not followed through. He should have been off the campus at that point.
I think they should have investigated further, because if they really cared about the athletes, they would have avoided all of this if they just looked into it a little bit more. Regardless if there was enough evidence or not, just one person saying something is enough for you to go and investigate, I feel. So all of this could have been avoided if they just looked into it more. If they cared that much, they would just look into it more.
Eric?
I think they should have fired him. They should have investigated it further and fired him.
Eventually.
Said was that the university should have taken action in 1998 when the first allegations were made about the woman saying that her son was in the shower. They would have looked into it and shown some concern for the victim. That and I feel like they should have done everything to look into it. The guy was, and to go to do that, they would have seen that he actually was guilty of that. And then they would have just fired him. He shouldn't have been a part of the university anymore. Should not have still had access to anything. Probably obviously went to jail for his action. And then it would have helped them out in the long run if they would have just nipped it in the butt right there, because they would have had to. It would have gone on for as long as it did and got as severe as it did. So yeah, I feel like they definitely should have checked on the mother and child, and then did everything in their power to see the investigation through. Okay, so the next question is, how should Penn State University treat the reputation of Joe Paterno going forward? Whoever wants to go first.
Joe Paterno he wasn't the guy that was conducting the sexual acts.
No, he was the head coach.
He was the head coach, and he was the one that was kind of covering up everything. So I think they should just kind of dismiss him, take him out of Penn. Penn State wants their image to stay clean, so I think they should dismiss him, fire him, take him out of all of the commercials or whatever type of publicity that he's in, and just kind of put him away and put out a public statement he was wrong for covering it up. So show his wrong and then put him away and be the right in the whole entire wrong incident.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Recognition for winning should ultimately go to the people that played the games, the team. Paterno should be erased completely from any literature, record, any sort of royalties. Paterno is deleted. That's
True.
how I feel.
I agree.
I feel like regardless of like his successes, he did deserve to get dismissed and fired. Because, like I said, it's without the student athlete, really, where's your career coming from? Where's your reputation even coming from? Because without them, he anywhere with and athletes. So I feel like he should have just been let go. I liked how Marie was talking about putting out a public statement. That really helps the brand too.
Yeah. I agree. I said that they should definitely own up to it and not just try to like sweep that under the rug, make people like know that, yeah, he was very much so involved. Because if you're like not telling the whole truth or covering it up, I see it as still being, still lying and being a part of the problem. So yeah, I do think that like they should own up to it and be like, yeah, what happened was shameful and unforgivable. And although he might have been a great coach, it is the players who are the ones who are like making this happen for for the university. And that for Joe Paterno, like they need to highlight that how like this is much bigger than sports. And that he like failed to, as a coach, like rise to the occasion and like do the right thing. So yeah, I agree with what Eric said, that he needs to be like erased from like Penn State's history. That he should just kind of have all of that like taken away from him. Like if there was like statues or I don't know, something crazy like that, or like a hall in his name, that all needs to be like eradicated.
Oh, there is a hall. Like he completely changed the whole sports program there. So I'm sure like he's got pictures of him with a team, trophies with his name on it. I mean, take it all away. Sorry, it's gone.
I didn't know it was that. I didn't know he was that like famous, Yeah,
if you could go into any sports hall, like where the gym is or where the when you go into the stadium, they'll have these glass cages and you'll see a bunch of trophies. And it's even at ASU. So, the same thing happened at ASU. It would be, the head coach. I mean, it's a sensitive issue with sports, but, it should be sensitive all around. We turn a blind eye at sports. We turn a blind eye everywhere else, And then so much is protecting the sports arena that you turn a blind eye a lot of times, just because it's bringing in revenue.
Right. Yeah. It's all about the money and not like about the morality of the situation. Exactly. Okay. So question 3 is, was it fair to punish the football program for what happened? What do you guys think?
I think like the individual's fault, but I feel like they needed to be involved just to experience it, I feel. It's kind of like if one person on a team messes up, then the whole team suffers. I feel like everyone kind of needs to know about it. But not to like an extreme level, not to where they need to be fired or kicked off the team or anything, but they do need to know about it. But it's ideally the individual's fault, like the coach's fault, not the team's.
It's just the way that things work, though. If like the whole team is looked at, then the whole team is going to get ridiculed. So I think, as the team, the people that were not involved should come forth and be a part of like sexual awareness, whatever it's called. Like they should come forth and do that kind of stuff to show that they are not a part of it and they want to work against it, to make it very much so that it's just the one person and it's not the entirety of the group.
Yeah, but then we don't know for a fact if the group was covering up for that, and then or if they were. I mean, we just don't know that, and then so I think the testosterone-led football team is the problem, and the football program should have been shut down. So there's other sports, but I'm sorry, it's so severe what he did, it should have been completely shut down. At least go ahead.
Go ahead. I thought you were done. My bad.
just at least for a couple of years. I don't know. There's rehabilitation, I'm sure, but man, that's just Penn State is poor shape.
Yeah, for me, I put that it was sad for like the players and the kids who picked that place as like their school or like got a scholarship from there, and it completely messes up with them, messes up what they have going on. So I do feel bad for them in that aspect. I don't feel bad for the university for like them losing out on money, because the football program, of course, is going to be like their cash cow. So I do kind of feel like they should be penalized for, because I just felt like there was so many people who were involved and so many people who were aware, and they just chose to do nothing. And like I feel like they definitely need to be penalized for that. So yeah, like either shutting it down, like how like frats get in trouble and they like shut them down for like 2 or 3 years. Like I feel like they should have done something like that. I think that they also should have made like I don't know, like either made something where like they showed that everybody was like allies, or like I don't know if you would do like not a foundation or like just something to like highlight the fact that okay, this happened and we're like doing what we can to like fix it, or I don't know, something like that. But yeah, I do think it was fair to punish the football program. So question number 4 is, what are the warning signs that an organization's leaders may be tempted to hide criminal and other unethical behavior?
Ooh, I love this one. I hope you don't mind if I go first. So it's the emeritus employee. Okay, so that's the employee he was allowed to, or Sandusky was allowed to retain his title and then come in and use the gym, use the facility for whatever he felt like. I mean, he had a key. So it's pretty much like having a dark room somewhere in somebody's house that nobody's allowed to, that they just make available key. And their failure to report, their failure to investigate, their failure to follow up, and then the punishment for whistleblowers. They just think how critical it would have been for the guy that was the janitor to even mention it, and they would have just raked him through the coals, and then that guy would have, his family would have suffered for that. And then the overconfidence. The football program, we're invincible. We're a winning team. We got awesome coaches, and then there's no other complaints. So, I mean, I don't even know why you're bringing it up. These are all problems. So, okay.
I agree.
This is question 4, correct?
Yeah.
What are warning signs?
What'd you say?
I was just asking what question it was. For me, it's just kind of hard to like, as a leader, I don't think, and I just don't think in their mindset, like I'm going to hide this behavior. If there's something wrong, I would want to like, be like, hey, this is wrong. Everyone learn from it. Don't do it. I don't want to have a bunch of people that are under my control or my leadership and they're doing wrong. Like, to me, I would fix it immediately. The warning signs, if there's the very first warning sign in 1998 where a mom called, a mom's not going to lie about their child being sexually assaulted. Like that's huge. That's not even a warning sign. That's already like detrimental to me. So I would take it to the extreme from there.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I feel like it just needed to be investigated earlier. So everything that Eric said, I feel like they should have just looked into it earlier, and then they would have surpassed all of these future issues. None of it would have happened if they just looked into it the first time. There was warning signs everywhere, but everyone just ignored it. And I don't feel like they intentionally ignored it, and I don't feel like they intentionally wanted bad things to happen. But I do feel like it should have just been looked into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took way too long.
So there was one incident that we knew of in 1998 and 45 incidences that we knew of when he finally left. So that type of behavior is completely unacceptable for even the first offense, and that was the first recorded offense. So he could have been doing this for years before that. And this is, I mean, it's not just, somebody just doesn't murder somebody. Somebody just doesn't rape somebody.
Yeah.
Somebody has a pattern of behavior that just follows them, they push it or whatever. So, I mean, if your pattern behavior is awesome, ethical behavior, you're going to pattern that behavior for a long time, you know, hopefully for your entire life. I mean, there was something wrong with the guy, that he may have been good at doing what he did, sports or whatever, but he wasn't. I'm sorry, but we're going to look into the patterns on your behavior and your history on the first offense, not 45 offenses later.
And 10 victims too, right?
Yeah.
45.
It's outrageous.
Yeah, so the warning signs, well, I know, like what you said, him having the key after the fact when he wasn't, when he was no longer an employee there, I can only imagine the things that he was doing when he actually was an employee and had, you know, all the, all the tools and I guess resources to, you know, use the facilities and abuse more kids. And I just think that, you know, like what they said, like there was emails and people had actually physically seen things happen with their own eyes. So I understand like not wanting to get in trouble. And like that kind of goes with question 5 for me. Like, I understand like people not wanting to lose their jobs, like people in like lower positions and stuff. But yeah, this person, I mean, that's such a heinous, what's the word I'm looking for? Heinous. Thank you. Heinous allegation. Anything that has to do with kids and like especially sexual abuse, that's just like there's no questions asked about that for me. So I feel like that should have been just right then and there, dead end. So yeah, so the fact that people were just kind of sweeping it under the rug and overlooking this and putting what I feel was like money over you know, the like injustice. Yeah, so I just feel like I feel like they were tempted to hide the behavior because of money, basically, and reputation.
It goes under power as well, if you think about it.
Yeah, he has a lot of power.
With our discussion.
Yeah.
Right. And especially a school like that, kind of like Alabama, like I'll use like Nick Saban. Like I've been to Alabama, I almost went there for school, and he's like a god. He's like a god there. So I'm assuming that, you know, Joe Paterno and Sandusky kind of had that same thing going on to where the whole college town knew about them. They were almost like, you know, celebrities. So I'm sure that people would never, you know, people are the last people to call out like public figures and stuff. You know, they don't want to disrupt like the peace or like, you know, or I don't know if that's even making sense. So yeah, I feel like power was like a factor. Okay, so question 5. How can organizations encourage followers and leaders to speak up when they witness the wrongdoing?
I don't think bad news should be punished. It should be investigated. We need to have inclusive environments and build like a trusting atmosphere and culture. We need to engage in a crisis management training. So, for example, you know, the football team is raping women. You know, this is an example of a crisis. Now, what do we do in this instance? How do we investigate it? How do we take care of it? And then create creative responses to the crisis. And then leadership development and competencies should be tested. So they should be trained and they should be practiced. So it shouldn't be a problem when somebody comes forward and says something went wrong. It should be already, bam, we have this in place. This is a process that we go through every time. So, and there should be a team on it. And it's like a loss prevention. If you've ever noticed loss prevention teams, they typically are taking care of losses after they occur instead of before they occur. And it's loss prevention. So it should be, we're going to go out and we're going to test things and then over and over and over until we know that we're solid. We have
proper training is exactly what they need. And I feel like for people to really go forward and really take in what they've learned. I feel like they need to know what impacts like the student athletes and the families the most, because I feel like it needs to be in a way like, I don't know how to say it, but they need to be, what's the word, like exposed to it almost. Like I feel like they just need to know the intensity, like the level of intensity of how hard this thing is and like what the issue is, so they can learn from it. Kind of like global warming. When we see like trash in the ocean and animals being affected by it, we're more likely to take action. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like with this, like if they know like the impact, how it goes on the family and the student athletes, I feel like people are more likely to take action. So it's just proper training.
Yeah, I think the training, and also it's like it's obviously something that everyone knew. If people are coming forth and saying it, I feel like almost the football team has to know. Word gets around too fast, and if there's so many cases coming up, like I feel like maybe it's just me saying it, but I feel like the football team is like, hey, yeah, maybe there was a joke about this guy being like a sexual predator. And at that point, if everyone knows, no one's going to speak up and say it because it's kind of like a known thing. So I think the best case for people to speak up is having the first incident be taken seriously. So like the fifth person, if they're like, hey, this thing happened, they'll be like, oh no, 5 times before people have said something and nothing happened to the guy.
Yeah.
So I believe that if people want to speak up, it should be taken seriously the first time.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's like such a good point, because I feel like when something does happen, like so many times, it starts to lose its like impact, and I guarantee that people became desensitized to the issue. Instead of when it happened, they would have been like, oh my god, boom, should have been dealt with situation. Everyone would understand the severity of it, and there would have been, that would have been it. But instead, it kept getting what's the word I'm looking for? It was like kind of forgotten or not dealt with. And it's kind of like a child. Yeah, it was dismissed. If you don't, if they do something like a bad behavior, you have to, reprimand them right after, instead of doing it the 4th, 5th time, and now they don't care anymore. Like you lost that window of opportunity to making it like a point. So yeah, so I feel like to encourage followers and leaders, I definitely think there needs to be some training. Like you said, Eric, some like crisis management training where like leaders should know, okay, if you're having something that's immoral going on, or someone who you work with is doing something bad, no matter how it's going to affect the university or whatever, the football program, you need to look as like, I don't know, as a follower, if I looked at my leader and I knew that they were overlooking someone's bad behavior, I would like lose respect for them. And I just think it would like kind of like plant the like seed of like bad stuff into the group. And like I just feel like leaders should know that they just need to like knock it out, no matter how it's going to affect like money and stuff like that. So I feel like there also needs to be immunity for people, like the janitor. If he would have came through, I feel like he should have had like an immunity and like his identity and stuff, so he wouldn't have been compromised, and people wouldn't, he wouldn't receive like threats and stuff like that. I feel like that would make people more willing to come forward and to speak up if they know that their jobs and their identities and stuff wouldn't have been in jeopardy.
That's so true too.
Mm-hmm.
It's Mike McQuarrie was mentioned in this as well, and he says he walked into the football facilities late night and saw Sandusky raping a child.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's not just the janitor; it's like another coach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's a coach.
It goes all the way up the chain.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Okay, so the last question is, what crisis leadership lessons do you take from this case?
Perspective taking. I'm just looking at it right now. I think the actual leader, who was Joe Paterno, he definitely like saw the whole entire crisis, and he knew that it was gonna impact the whole entire football team, and that's why he kept it like hush hush. but I feel like if he did put it in a different perspective, like he would have known that it would have made it worse by hiding it, and it did make it worse. So I think he had the wrong perspective, and that's something that I've learned in this case.
I feel like what I took from it, I feel like no matter how much it can hurt a reputation, I feel like it's always the right thing to do is to come forward and speak about it. Just like I said before, to avoid future issues and prevent new ones from coming. So, and like, not new ones from coming, but prevent current ones from getting any worse. So I feel like it's always the right thing to do is to come forward and speak about it, because you're changing not only your life, but like the lives of others.
Have you guys ever heard of, someone saying, oh, we love him, he could have never done that? Or perhaps maybe she sleeps with everyone, so, she had it coming. Or, it's very difficult to separate the emotion from the offense, because if we have a perception about somebody, and then we find out that she was hurt or he was hurt, like, there's no way, or he's doing the hurting or she's doing the hurting. Well, there's no way. They love him. They could have never done something like that, or they're a skank. That has nothing to do with the offense, and then so based on my history, I tend to get emotional when something like this happens, and so it's difficult for me to separate the emotion, but it's important that that's done. That's what I've learned. Inappropriate action addressed rapidly. Damage control needs to be practiced. Just like an argument, we should anticipate the negative happening.
Yeah.
And we should look for trouble, kind of like, hey, I always look for a fight. Well, I'm looking for problems. I'm looking for something that we could fix. I think every organization should hire outside like contractors to kind of provoke safety and security issues, maybe unethical decision making. You understand, like, a contractor comes in and they're trying to create an unethical environment, and then crisis management plans should be in the front pages of everybody's employee handbooks, and then we could learn the mistakes of others, and then reflection as well on the historical events that have happened. So, like the Challenger and the Columbia shuttle, the Challenger exploded after takeoff, is because people overlooked. They were overconfident on checking, and so we lost some astronauts' lives. And the same thing with Columbia. So and it exploded on reentry. So these are pretty tragic events for those 45 people. I mean, we really haven't covered, what we would do with these 45 people, but again, we try to separate the emotion.
Yeah, so crisis leadership. Well, for me already, if I was a boss and say I had someone who did something so horrible as like this, and if they were like my top producer, like my big money maker or whatever, yeah, ethically, there would be no way that I could keep this person in my business or a part of my company, because I would care how others would look at me, because I do feel like it would fall on me if I knew about this. There's absolutely no way I would have someone like that working for me. And yeah, I feel like they need to place like not like, I don't know if I'm looking for the word like humanity, or maybe I'll just like say morals again. That should be like at the forefront. Like what is like best for like the people who are involved, and how do we like help like the victims and stuff like that. And instead in this case they were just concerned about the money. So I feel like there needs to be, or what was it? What legislation? Yeah, so I just basically took like from it that, yeah, like just any bad behavior just has got to be stopped, like immediately. And like it happened to Joe Paterno. Yeah, obviously he didn't do any of those things, but knowing about them and doing nothing is just as bad. So yeah, that's what I learned. That's pretty much it.
So do you feel if you start with an organization that's a large organization, it's not just a small mom and pop business, that you should go through this type of training when you start? Like, hey, this is what's going to happen if you're involved in inappropriate activity or unethical behavior or whatever. If you know that going, starting out, it's like, then you're less likely to make those unethical decisions. I mean, how do you guys feel about that?
I think it should be at the forefront of everybody's minds. So they're with a situation like that or making a decision whether or not to say something, they know that they can take the fault for it too, and that there's like a no tolerance policy, and that like they need to come forward with whatever they're saying or with whatever like allegations or whatnot. Yeah, I think it needs to be like at the forefront right as they come into, getting the new job, that they should be aware of consequences and like situations and how to prevent them or how to deal with them.
What about the PR? So they talk in the text about the best orator in your organization should be covering the PR and basically be the face of the organization, and then it shouldn't be somebody over here giving like an account of their story or their account of the story, but everything funnels through one person.
Yeah, when I think about that, I think of like Olivia Pope from Scandal. Have you guys seen that show? How she's like, oh yeah, how she's like the fixer or whatever, and she like deals with like, she's like crisis management, but like to the extreme, she like comes up with everything. So yeah, I think that I don't know. I kind of feel like if it's like a victim's account of what happened, I feel like that would kind of touch people more so than just some nice polished man or woman speaking for an organization. I think if it's like money laundering or something like that, okay, maybe, but like something with like the victims, I definitely think that they need to like be the ones to speak. And like, I don't know, I just feel like when it's like a personal account, it is more, it's taken like more seriously.
Yeah, with that example, I think of people in court that are victims and they're talking to the person that's getting prosecuted. That story and that actual like that person coming out and saying it to that person is like a big impact upon like the whole entire court.
Yeah, it's much more
serious. Yeah,
definitely.
All right, guys.
Thank you guys again for waiting for me. I'm so sorry. I was not trying to I wasn't just messing around. I promise you I was trying to figure it out. So thanks for waiting, though. I appreciate it.
No, it's chill. You were a great leader this week.
Thanks. Awesome, you guys.
All right. Last one next week, same time, okay?
Yes.
All right. Good luck with your
recording.
See you later.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye.